Berikut sudah selesai penjelasan dari kelompok kami terkait Distokia Fetalis dan penanganannya. Semoga dapat membantu ketika ada kasus di lapangan. Apa?
Jangan lupa like, comment.
Distokia fetalis merupakan kesukaran kelahiran yang disebabkan oleh faktor fetusnya, yakni di mana keadaan induk dalam keadaan normal secara anatomi dan fisiologi. Lalu distokia fetalis terbagi menjadi dua, oversize fetus dan kondisi atau keadaan abnormal fetus ketika akan melewati jalur kelahiran. Oversize fetus terbagi menjadi 4, yaitu duplikasi fetus pada hewan monotopus, lalu ada ascites atau penimbunan cairan di bagian abdomen, lalu ada anasarka atau penimbunan cairan di seluruh tubuh, dan ada hydrocephalus atau penimbunan cairan di bagian kepala.
Selanjutnya ada kedudukan abnormal pada fetus. Yang pertama ada kelainan pada situs, kedua pada posisi, ketiga pada habitus, dan yang keempat adalah kematian fetus. Untuk yang pertama yaitu situs. Untuk situs sendiri merupakan hubungan antara sumbu longitudinal fetus terhadap saluran kelahiran induk. Yang kedua ada posisi. Posisi merupakan kedudukan permukaan kolumna vertebralis anak terhadap bagian tubuh induk. Dan yang ketiga ada habitus, yaitu disposisi akibat penekukan maupun perentangan yang terjadi pada ekstremitas maupun kepala dan leher. Dan yang keempat adalah kematian fetus. Untuk kematian fetus ini ada 3. Yang pertama ada mumifikasi yang disebabkan oleh kekurangan nutrisi pada fetus. Yang kedua ada maserasi yang disebabkan oleh infeksi dari bakteri. Dan yang ketiga ada mole atau gunting anggur.
Untuk yang selanjutnya kita membahas posisi normal dari fetus, yaitu ada dorsosakral, yang dimana dorsal fetus ini menempel dengan tulang sakral itu. Untuk yang kedua ada situs dari longitudinal posterior, yang dimana caudal fetus menghadap ke saluran lahir induk, yang dimana untuk normal ini tidak ada habitus.
Selanjutnya adalah fetus, di mana di sini kepalanya menunduk ke atas, yang berarti habitusnya upward. Kemudian selanjutnya kepala fetus menunduk, yang menandakan habitusnya itu downward. Kemudian habitus selanjutnya kepala fetus menekuk ke arah kiri atau kanan, yang disebut dengan lateral dexter ataupun sinister. Kemudian ada habitus di mana kaki depan fetus menekuk, yang dinamakan dengan bilateral flexion,
Yaitu dorso-iliaca. Dorso-iliaca ini dibagi jadi 2, ada dorso-iliaca sinister ataupun dorso-iliaca dexter. Dorso pubis, yang dimana dorsal fetus ini menghadap ke os pubis dari induk. Berikutnya juga merupakan situs abnormal dari fetus, yaitu transversal dorsal, yang dimana kebalikan dari ventral tadi, bagian dorsal dari fetus ini menghadap ke saluran lahir induk. Untuk situs selanjutnya ada transversal ventral, yang dimana posisi fetus itu tegak lurus menyamping dari saluran kelahiran, dan ventral fetus itu menghadap ke saluran lahir induk. Untuk selanjutnya ada situs abnormal dari fetus, yaitu vertikal dorsal, yang kebalikan dari ventral tadi, di mana dorsal dari fetus itu menghadap ke saluran lahir. Selanjutnya ada situs abnormal dari fetus, yaitu vertikal ventral, yang dimana posisi fetus ini tegak lurus ke atas dari saluran kelahiran induk, dan bagian ventral dari fetus itu mengarah ke saluran lahir. Untuk selanjutnya ada situs abnormal dari fetus, yaitu transversal ventral, yang dimana posisi fetus ini tegak lurus menyamping dari saluran kelahiran, dan posisi ventralnya menghadap ke saluran lahir itu.
Okay, if we have determined that we have a posterior presentation but with no legs, because the birth canal is free of legs and all you have is a tail present, then we call that a true breech presentation. We can deliver this calf, but it's going to take a lot of effort to bring both hind limbs up and into the birth canal and then deliver it through a normal posterior presentation. So the first thing that we will do is, a lot of times the calf's legs, hind legs, are positioned as such, you see here, with the entire leg working itself forward and ending up next to the calf's neck or head. It's that far away from you. A second thing to remember about this dystocia is that you may not have a lot of ability to repel the calf back in to give you more room, because if you repel the calf back into the uterus, you actually take away the limb and it moves further away from you. So what we have to do is work with the bulk of the calf's hind end that's presented into this pelvic inlet, and we will slide our hand in as far as we can until we locate the tibia of this calf. And then once we're there, we get a really nice grip, the thumb on the other side, 4 fingers on one side, a really nice grip like you're gripping a baseball bat. And then once we have a really nice grip, what we will do is pull this calf towards the birth canal. So that calf will work, that leg will work forward towards the birth canal, again flexing the hock as you see here. Once you do that, we will come out of the cow again. We'll take a break. That would have taken a lot of effort to do. And the calf's leg is then in position for the next set of movements that must take place to correct this. So again, we will slide our hand in, up underneath this leg if we can, off to the side, and we're going to grab a hold of this calf's metatarsal bone here. And once we grab that metatarsal bone, we'll put our mini fingers over it and thumb, and then once we get in that position, then we'll pull back on that calf gently and slowly. And at the same time you're doing this, at this point, we're going to have to repel the calf's hind end. So you're going to take your other arm, and you're going to slide into the birth canal, and you're going to repel this calf back into the uterus, giving us a little bit more room to work. Again, just to stop here and describe, we're going to have a lot of length from the point of the hock to the tip of the toe. This length is going to be longer than the diameter of the inlet of the calf's birth canal. If we continue to pull this calf's leg into the birth canal, we will drive this hock up, and if we're not careful, the hock will actually split the uterus like this. And that is a very bad thing to happen. It could actually mean that the cow will not survive this procedure. So we will avoid pushing that hock through the cow's uterus. How do we do that? Well, once we get a good grip on the metatarsal bone and we're ready to protect our ventral pelvic area by using our other hand to guard against the claw of the calf's feet, we have to do two things. One is we have to drive forward, again repel the calf's leg into the cow's uterus the best that we can, and then we have to do this at a diagonal. Since that's the largest width of the cow's pelvic inlet is the diagonal, we need to take advantage of that length. So as we're pushing this calf's leg forward dorsally, towards the hock forward, we're bringing the fetlock and the feet into the pelvic canal. So again, try not to go straight up and down like this. This will guarantee that you will tear the cow's uterus. You have to approach it at the diagonal, and then you have to try to repel the hock towards the cow's head at the same time entering the calf's foot into the pelvic inlet. Now we're going to go in after the next leg, same thing here. So we're going to slide our hand in until we get to a point of the tibia. We're going to bring that forward, just as we have here. We're going to stop right when the when the hock reaches the pelvic inlet. Then we're going to repel the calf a little bit into the cow, and that gives you a chance to take your hand down and approach the metatarsal bone, getting a good grip on it, bringing that forward, repel this calf, and at the same time we're going to go under and protect. Again, we're going to try to take advantage of the diagonal, so as we're correcting this, we must pay attention to try to take the calf's hock forward towards the cow's head, and at the same time lift up on the calf's foot, protecting it into the birth canal, bringing both back legs into the birth canal. And once we're in that position, we probably haven't fully dilated the cervix just yet, so we must spend a little bit extra time fully dilating the cervix. Like with any posterior presentation, that's got to be a critical point to address. Once you finish fully dilating the cervix, you can gently pull this calf out of this cow and deliver it in a posterior presentation. Okay, a second common dystocia that we are called to assist in for delivery is what we would call a limb back or retention of the leg. And in this case, we're going to describe the retention of a foreleg or a front leg. On the initial examination, the veterinarian will approach the birth canal and do an exam to determine whether or not the calf is in its normal position, presentation, and posture. What we find here is that there is one limb of the calf present in the birth canal, and then as we continue to investigate, we find there is the head of the calf that seems to be in its normal place. And then when we try to identify the second leg of this calf, there is not a second leg presented into the birth canal. So what we have identified here is a retention of the leg, and it's retained at the shoulder for this particular problem or dystocia. The leg can actually be retained at many different locations. Sometimes it can be retained at the corpus, so you only have the corpus or the blunt end of the corpus presented to the birth canal. And then sometimes it's retained at the fetlock, so we only have the fetlock presented at the birth canal. In this particular case, we're going to demonstrate a full retention of the leg at the shoulder for this particular calf. So in order to correct this, we must obviously bring this leg into its normal position. And we know from our large animal species that we cannot deliver a calf without having the calf in a normal position, which means both front legs in the birth canal with the head located between the two legs. So this cow would not be able to deliver this calf even if you thought it could slide right out of the birth canal with the leg right up against the calf's side. So we have to correct this calf's leg and bring it into the birth canal. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our assistant here slide his arm into the uterus of the cow, and we're going to identify that this calf's right front leg is retained at the shoulder. If you have very long arms, or if the calf is presented to you very closely to the birth canal, you may actually be able to continue down the leg until you get to the point that you need to get to correct, to make the first position correction, which is what's happening now. So as we slide down the leg, we go beyond the elbow and we get to the foreleg of this calf right here above the corpus. And that's our first area that we're going to grasp a hold of too. So the way we do that is we take our hands and our forefingers go around the back of the bones, and our palm of our hands flush up against the side of the calf's leg, and that gives you a very good grip on this calf's leg and a very good chance to pull the calf's leg to you. So gently we're going to pull the calf's leg forward until we get it in that position, and we're going to stop right there. That's as far as we generally need to go with our hand in that position. The next step is we need to find the metacarpal bone of this calf. And so the metacarpal bone now needs to be identified. We can either slide our hands down just like this over this bone, but we may have a difficult time actually correcting it with our hands on top. So what we will do is we'll back out of the cow, we'll rest for a bit, gather our strength, and then we'll proceed forward again to identifying the metacarpal bone. So we'll slide underneath the calf's leg, and we'll keep our hands like this position, and we'll slide our fingers over the side of the bone in this position here. So now we're at the metacarpal area, and our fingers, all four of them, hopefully will get across the bone just like that. And our thumb on the other side, connecting, making a circle. We have a really good grip on the foreleg of this calf at the metacarpal area. And then we slide this up. Generally we have to go up because we have to clear the pelvic inlet with our foot, and we bring that forward, and then we actually may stop right there, and we may actually have retention of the calf's foot at the fetlock on the pelvic floor. So what we have to do in order to not damage the cow, because this point here, the length from the corpus to the point of the toe can actually be longer than the actual diameter of the cow's pelvic inlet. And if we continue to try to present this leg into the birth canal with the length of this being longer than the diameter, we may actually cause damage, where we could actually put enough force on the uterus of the cow and drive the corpus through the uterus, creating a uterine tear. So we have to be careful not to do that. So in order to avoid that, we're going to actually need to take our other hand and slide it underneath the arm that has a good grip on this leg, and we're going to keep sliding our hand under until we guard the cow against the point of the feet, just like that. So you can see now that we have the feet and the point of the toes of the claw in our hand, we can then bring this calf's foot into the birth canal and correct this dystocia. The second most important thing that we have to do is we must push back with our corpus, and sometimes sideways, and then once you do that, you clear space and room for the foot to pass through and enter into the birth canal. So we'll repel the calf's upper limb back into the cow's uterus, then we'll take our fingers of our other hand and slide the calf's foot into the birth canal. Again, we're changing places the best we can, and once the calf's feet enter the birth canal, the rest is simple. The calf's leg will continue to follow as you slide out of the cow and correctly place the limb back into the normal position for it to be delivered. If we have a dystocia where we have one leg retained, a posterior leg, we can correct that posterior leg malpositioning and bring it into the birth canal for posterior presentation delivery, which can occur in our bovine. In order to correct this leg back, what we do is we approach the birth canal with our more dominant hand that we like to work with, because you're going to need a lot of strength to utilize. So we're going to search for our tibia, identifying the leg as we go along beyond the femur and the stifle until we reach the tibia. And once we have the tibia, we want 4 fingers around it and the thumb underneath trying to touch your fingers. In that case, that gives us a really good grip on this calf's leg. And what we will do is actually bring this calf towards the birth canal, this leg towards the birth canal in this fashion. At some point, you're going to have to rest. The calf's leg is now a little bit closer to being corrected, so that's all very good, but we haven't completely corrected this situation. The next step to finish correcting the retention of the hind leg is to grasp the metacarpal area. Now, what you can do, metatarsal bone. What you can do is actually slide off of the tibia onto the metatarsal bone. Again, you're going to want to grab a hold of the metatarsal bone real strong with 4 fingers and a thumb, and hang on to that metatarsal bone in order to correct that position. So what you end up doing, excuse me, you're gonna have to edit. This is why we shouldn't have phones. There, I said it. So once we have found the metatarsal bone, then we have to bring the calf's foot into the birth canal. Another way you can find the metatarsal bone is if you don't slide directly off the tibia onto the metatarsal, what you can do is come out, rest, go back in and slide along the side again until you get to the metatarsal bone just below the hock. And then you want to turn your hand over so that you can have 4 fingers around the metatarsal bone and thumb trying to connect below and getting a really good grip on the metatarsal bone. Once you have a really good grip on the metatarsal bone, you're going to have to repel the calf back. So you're going to take your other arm and push the calf other leg in, or use the hind end of the calf, the tail head, to push the calf in. And once you push the calf in, you're going to bring this calf's leg up in this position. Remember that the length of the calf from toe to point of the hock is longer than the diameter of the pelvic inlet, and you can cause a tremendous damage to the cow if you don't pay attention to that length discrepancy. The one thing that happens quite frequently is if you try to correct this in a straight up and down method, you end up having this hock. If you continue to pull in a straight up or down, this hock will actually split the dorsal uterine wall there at the body of the uterus, and you can drive this hock completely through the uterine wall. And that is detrimental to the cow's life, actually. Not many cattle survive that situation. So we have to avoid doing that. The way that we avoid doing that is we have to give us plenty of room to repel the calf's stifle or point of the hock back towards the cow's head. So again, you're going to push back. At the same time you push back, and you can use both hands or you can use your hand on the metatarsal bone, you're going to push back. You're going to have to slide your hand up underneath the feet to protect the point of the claws and the entry of the feet into the birth canal so we don't do any damage to the ventral body wall, vaginal wall. And as we pull back, push back on the calf, the point of the hock, we actually can then bring the calf's feet into the birth canal and correct it that way. And once we have both feet into the birth canal, then we can actually pull this calf out in a posterior presentation.
Berikut penjelasan dari kelompok D4 terkait Distokia Fetalis dan penanganannya. Semoga dapat membantu ketika ada kasus di lapangan. Sekian dari kelompok kami, terima kasih sudah menyaksikan.